I'll take you through stores management. Majorly, we are going to look at storage of medicine, leave alone storage of other things. I will focus on majorly storing of medicines. So, briefly, when you enter a store, a pharmacy store in a facility, for example, a hospital, you will roughly or ideally find it looking like this. However, we see that there is a person here, probably an inventory manager, taking charge of the inventory and making sure that he's monitoring whatever is in the store. So we can also find something like this depending on how the store was built. And when we look at this, we see that it is not the boxes are not directly on the floor. And as we go on, we are going to really appreciate why we do not have to store medicine directly on the floor. So let's move on and see. We have to define some terms, but before we go on and define these terms, we are going to see why do we need to store medicine? Why is it necessary for us to do storage of medicine? There is a need for us to know why we need to store so that we appreciate the fact that we need to follow all the different precautions, all the standard operating procedures that are required for us to store our medicine. So what is a store? A structure or a room where commodities are kept for safety and are available to users as and when required. The required medicines from the supplier, the received medicines from the suppliers are kept in a room and distributed to the end users. A store therefore receives, holds, and dispatches medicine. Is a room that is responsible of receiving, holding, like keeping them, and then dispatching is like sending them to the end users, distributing them to people who are going to consume, the end consumers. So what is storage? After you know what a store is, there is need to know what storage is. In order to ensure availability of medicine, they have to be bought in advance and stored in a health facility so that they are available when a patient needs them. Medicines are sensitive items and storage conditions which are usually indicated on the packets have to be followed. Otherwise, their quality might deteriorate and they could even cause harm to the patients. So you find that it is good to know why we need to store the medicines, and this is exactly what it is talking about before we look at what storage is itself. Okay, that's why we had to go through this. A good storage system has to be in place in order to facilitate distribution of medicine. Principles of good storage should be followed to maintain the quality of medicines but also prevent theft and stock outs. Principles of good storage have to be followed or should be followed in order to maintain the quality of medicines but also prevent theft and stock outs. Goals of good storage: to ensure availability of medicine of acceptable quality at any point in time, to prevent losses due to expired medicine or expiries. These are goals of storage. I hope we got what storage is. I hope we got it clearly what it is. So when we look at the goals, we ensure availability of medicine of acceptable quality at any point in time. And we also need to prevent losses due to expired medicines or expiry of medicines in the facility, and then medicines that have not been stored in line with the required conditions. We also have to see the broken medicines. We have to prevent the loss as a result of bottles breaking that are carrying medicine, cartons breaking because of mishandling in the store, because of poor management in the store. And then also we have to also look at the thefts. We don't have to lose medicine because of theft in the facility. So the goals of good storage are majorly focusing on these specific areas. So let us look at the importance. After we have seen the goals of good storage, there is need for us to know the importance, or yeah, however you do pronounce the word, importance of good storage. When properly arranged, it ensures easy and faster access to stored items. When proper stock rotation is done, it avoids medicine expiring in a facility. When proper medicine conditions are maintained, it ensures that medicine quality is maintained. Security measures prevent against theft and then prevents infestation with pests and vermin. Even when you do not clean where you stay, for example, let's take where at home. If you don't clean home, if you don't mind of arranging whatever you have at home, you find that pests are going to invade in the area. And when they invade, of course, they come along with, they can affect and bring about different diseases into the human body. So there is need, even our medicines quality and effectiveness can be affected while they are at the store or while at storage. If it is not maintained well, you find that it will either expire, the quality will deteriorate as a result of poor storage. So there is need for us to have good storage in our facility, so that we make sure that the right quality of a medicine is reaching the end consumer, and the end consumer is going to use the medicine and will have to get better. Because when the quality of the medicine deteriorates on storage, you find that the patient who is going to consume this medicine is not going to get better compared to when our patient had taken a medicine with all its quality. So you find that storage of medicine in facilities is a part of quality assurance. We are ensuring the quality of the medicine until it reaches a final consumer. When it is mishandled, when not stored properly, when it is not maintained, it will be affected. So those are some of the importance. So we continue with the importance. We see that good storage protects medicines from fire, which would lead to financial loss. You find that some of our medicines are flammables, and if we do not store flammables with caution, can lead to fire outbreak. And when fire outbreak, or when the store burns and has medicine, we are going to incur a lot of losses, and we shall also do the renovation and the rest. So all that is loss. When good stock rotation records are maintained in the store, important information can be derived from them, e.g., consumption patterns. As we move deep into storage in management, stores and inventory management, we are also going to look at how we can quantify the medicines, how we can distribute the medicines, how we can determine or select medicines in a facility. And when we look at selection of medicine, we shall be in position to appreciate why it is good for us to keep the records in the facility, why it is good. So I have some activity here for us. Let me do this activity, which says, what entails good storage? what is composed in good storage? What can we see and maybe say that these medicines are stored well? What is entailed? What should we put in mind? What should we find for us to conclude that there is these people are practicing good storage of medicines? Excuse me. So that takes us to characteristics of a good storage. The store should be divided into zones. What we saw in the first picture are zones that provide a range of environmental conditions and degrees of security. Stock should be arranged within each zone in an orderly system. Stock should be stored on pallets on the floor, on pallet ranks, or on shelves. So you find that if we want the medicines to be on the lower level, we need to put pallets first on the level before we put the medicine on top. We do not put the boxes or store the boxes directly on the floor. Good housekeeping, cleaning and inspection, disposal of expired and damaged stock should be maintained. They should ensure cleaning of the place, damp dusting, and then always doing check or rotation, physical count, so that we are able to identify the expired medicines and those that need to do, those are broken, those that its quality has deteriorated, there is need for us to dispose them off. And then if we dispose them off, of course we need to use appropriate method of disposal of medicine. So you find that we can characterize that as a good storage practice. The management structure should be clearly defined, and then each store should have an adequate number of qualified staff. We need to employ or deploy people who have an idea of how to store medicines, how to manage medicines in the store. To promote effective staff, to promote efficiency, staff should have good working conditions and facilities. For us to ensure there is efficiency, we have to make sure that we provide good working conditions for the staff, and then we have to make sure that the staff are comfortable in the area or in the specific duty they're handling. Sufficient handling equipment, for example, ladders, lifts. All personnel should receive proper training in relation to good storage practice, regulations, procedures, and safety, personnel hygiene, and then sanitation. So this takes us to something else. We have known characteristics. We know why we need to store, and then what a store is, what storage is. We look at tools and equipment for medicine storage. What are some of the tools that we need to use when we are storing? Stock storage and handling. Products must be stored so that they are easily accessible and protected against damage. There are 4 basic systems of storage. We have shelves, basic systems of storage. We have shelves. We have floor or tools. These are tools or equipments for storage. So we call them the basic systems of storage. We have shelves, we have floor pallets, we have block stacked pallets, and then we have pallet racks. We have pallet racks. Stock handling, we are continuing. We see that direct storage of cartons on the floor should be avoided to avoid damage by moisture. The choice of system depends on the total quality, the total quantity of the products to be stored, average volume of each product, internal height of the storage building. So these are things you have to consider before you choose a specific basic system of storage that you would prefer, either shelves, pallets, floor pallets, something like that. Internal height of the storage building, and then we have local availability of mechanical handling equipment and the skills to use and maintain them. So here we see the shelves. We have started with one of them, the basic systems. We have shelves. They do not require mechanical handling and are suitable when the volume and the weight of individual items are too small to justify pallets. The internal height of the building is not large enough to multi-year pallet ranking. Manual goods handling is locally more reliable or more economical than mechanical handling. So that is why we would prefer shelves. If you have a facility that is not big, you would prefer to use shelves. For example, if you're dealing with a drug shop or a community pharmacy, you would prefer to use shelves for storage because the quantities you're going to store are not heavy, or you're not going to store in boxes. And the quantity also is not big, so you find that you would prefer to use shelves for a drug shop or a pharmacy. In order to reduce manual handling, goods should be transported to and from the shelves to on a trolley charts. Heavy items should be stored on lower shelves. For example, liquids should be stored on lower shelves because of the liquid content in it. You find that it makes them heavy. So if you have syrups, if you have water for injection, distilled water for injection, dextrose 5%, you also store them on your lower shelves. Whenever possible, other items should be organized so that frequently picked items are at a weight height. You find that the fast moving items should always be at the waist height. They should be near and easily accessible. They should not be too high because we find that some people that are short, for example, and then there are those who are tall. So when you put it too high or too low, they can have they have to stretch to pick, they have to bend to pick. So it is always good to put at the waist height. Not at the waist, but you find that the shelves that are at the waist height is easier for a person to just pick it for the fast moving items in your store. Safety stock may be stored at a higher level. So we are going to adventure more on what a safety stock is. So shelves, we have some example of how shelves would look like. So we find this. Oops. We see we have shelves. These are shelves. Sorry about that, I'm trying to zoom it so that you can see. So this is a shelf. You find that medicines are packed, and then we have we can see here, try to reduce it. Yes, we can see here these are heavy items. They are stored at the lower shelves, and then we find that these ones are light, and then this is approximately at the waist size, or the waist height, not size, the waist height. Yes, so you find that those that are the waist height, we expect them to be probably fast moving items. So stock storage and handling. Floor pallets is the second thing we are looking at. We are done with shelves. So a good solution in warehouses with low ceiling heights. Useful where pallet ranking and forklifts are too expensive. Useful for heavy, these are advantages. Useful for heavy stock bulky items, e.g., cotton rolls, medicine kits, and large hospital equipment. So let's see what floor pallets are. Here we are. These are what we call floor pallets. We say that it is always not good to store our medicines directly on the floor because of the effect of moisture, and most of our drugs can be affected by the moisture. So when the moisture content affects the medicine, you find that the quality of the medicine deteriorates. So to avoid packing them or putting them directly on the floor, we need what we call floor pallets. And these are what we call the floor pallets. This is how it looks like. And that takes us to something new, that is the block stacked pallets. We are also going to look at how they look like. Pallets containing light goods can be stacked on top of one another in blocks. They should be used for items without expiry dates or with very high turnover, like very long expiries. Yeah, like time to expire is long. For example, if a drug is manufactured this year, which is 2024 by the way, you find that it can expire like in 6 years to come. So those you can pack them in block stacked pallets. A cheap and space efficient method of storage, and no ranking is required. The first items are at the bottom of the stack, hence the need for products without expiry dates to prevent expiry or with very high turnover, such as those at the bottom, can be reached fast. Okay, so we see those are the block stacked pallets were the pallets we saw when I was just starting the presentation. I hope we can remember how they are. We are also going to go back and see how they look like. Pallet ranking generally have 3 to 4 tiers. Shelving can be combined with pallet ranking. The bottom tier may be used to stock working stock. Always what the stock you are using. And then the upper tiers can be used to store safety stock. We are going to look at what working stock is, what a safety stock is. So this is what pallet ranking is. We see that we find that for example, up here we can store this upper shelf. Okay, pallet, I don't want to call it shelf, because a shelf takes us back to the other diagram we have seen, which may confuse us. So here we see that up here we can store a safety stock, and we are going to look at what a safety stock is. And then here we can use the working stock, and then maybe here we have our liquids, the heavy compounds. So that the working stock, we are always picking it to use. We are always picking that the safety stock is what we have put aside for days out of stock. In case we do not have stock, we put a reserve. Another word for safety stock, I can call it reserve. For example, when you're at home and then you have a reserve tank for water, or you have a rain tank, which always corrects rainwater for African countries. For other countries, I don't know how you guys do it. Yeah. So for African countries, we can have a rain tank which can keep the water in case the tap water goes off or turns off. We use the rain, the tank water which has been kept on reserve. So the same applies to medicine. When we look at medicine, we can have a high consumption rate in a month, which maybe we did not predict. and then it takes us to days out of stock. So for cases of days out of stock, we have to look at having some things reserved, having some medicines reserved in cases of days out of stock. That is why we have the safety stock. So these are still the ranks, and this brings us to the end. Thank you so much. I am called